The scent of unbleached linen and pressed jasmine always clung to Zakia Amari's hands, a delicate contradiction for a woman whose life had been anything but soft. In the bustling heart of Etheria, where glass towers met ancient stone markets, Zakia's studio, the thread and needle, was a haven of quiet rebellion. At 23, she was an artisan known for bespoke wedding gowns that looked deceptively simple but moved with impossible grace. What the giddy brides and meticulous wedding planners did not know was that Zakia was an architect of armor. Orphaned young, Zakia had grown up watching women break under pressure, the pressure of expectation, of sacrifice, of the performance of happiness. She knew that the wedding day was a beautiful lie, a fragile mask over the complex reality of two lives merging. A bride needed more than lace, she needed a lifeline. This was the genesis of her secret art, the hidden message. Zakia worked exclusively in the lining. Using the finest triple-spun silk thread, often dyed a shade of muted copper or midnight blue that vanished into the backing fabric, she would weave tiny, personalized affirmations into the bodice, the cuff, or the innermost hem. These were not mere initials, they were talismans of strength, invisible until the moment of need, a secret whispered from her solitary world into the deepest core of the bride. Yaira, Zakia's oldest friend and the proprietor of the luxurious textile shop across the alley, often watched Zakia hunched over her work table late into the night. "Zakia," Yaira called one crisp evening, placing a cup of hot spiced cider next to Zakia's elbow. "You're stitching your soul into that satin again. Take a breath." Zakia looked up, her dark eyes intense under the glow of the drafting lamp. She was working on a sheath gown for a diplomat's daughter, a bride named Leona, who looked serene but whose hands chronically trembled during fittings. "It's the binding thread, Yaira," Zakia murmured, holding up a needle so fine it seemed to disappear in the light. "The exterior is performance. Perfection. The interior must be honesty. Leona needs to remember that her intelligence is more valuable than her poise." Yaira sighed, leaning against the doorframe. She was the only one who knew the full scope of Zakia's mission. "You exhaust yourself pouring strength you barely have into strangers. Why not put a talisman in your own coat pocket?" Zakia smiled faintly. "My strength comes from the needle. I lost my family, yes, but I gained the ability to see the fractures. These dresses are not just garments, they are promises I couldn't keep to my younger self." The spring rush brought Zakia her most challenging commission to date, a dress for Haya. Haya was a rising star in urban planning, known for her sharp intellect and her uncompromising vision for sustainable city architecture. Her wedding, however, was a profoundly traditional, high-society affair, meant to solidify a merger of two powerful families. Haya approached the fittings with the precision of a builder inspecting blueprints, not the dreamy anticipation of a bride. She chose a voluminous ball gown of ivory chantilly lace and heavy Duchess satin, a dress that belonged in a palace, not a conference room. During their third fitting, Haya stood rigid on the pedestal. The gown was stunning, a masterpiece of architectural layering. But her eyes held a hollow look Zakia recognized instantly, the look of calculated martyrdom. "It's perfect, Zakia," Haya said, her voice flat. "It looks exactly like what everyone expects." "But what do you expect, Haya?" Zakia asked softly, adjusting a tiny fold near the waist. Haya's composure cracked, just for a millisecond. She let out a breath that sounded like a sob denied. "I expect to be quiet for a long time. My future husband requires a partner who focuses on the home, on reputation. He thinks my plans for the city are distracting." Zakia's world narrowed to the single needle in her hand. This was not a distressed bride, this was a caged lioness. The dress wasn't armor, it was camouflage. "We need to adjust the structure of the bodice slightly," Zakia announced, masking the fury in her tone. "It needs better internal support." That night, Zakia cancelled all other appointments. The dress, the Haya, became her sole focus. She needed to craft a message that would burn through the satin and into Haya's spirit. The message could not be gentle. It had to be a shout. Zakia carefully cut away a section of the innermost lining, a fine, silk organza. She selected a spool of rich, vibrant crimson thread, a color usually reserved for hidden embroidery in royal garments. She would weave the message directly into the panel that would lie over Haya's solar plexus. Her hands moved with a furious precision she hadn't known she possessed. She created a series of intricate geometric patterns, reminiscent of ancient foundational support beams, a nod to Haya's architectural passion. Within the geometry, running vertically, was the message, stitched in minute, inverted script, designed to be read by touch. Build your own city. The foundation is yours. It took Zakiya nearly 48 hours with minimal sleep. When she was done, the crimson script vanished perfectly into the dense weave of the organza backing. Only a highly trained eye, or a desperate touch, could distinguish the slight, firm resistance of the hidden stitches. Yaira, dropping off lunch, found Zakiya pale and trembling, the finished bodice laid out like a sleeping creature. Zakiya, you look like you fought a war, Yaira whispered, gazing at the gown. I think I just armed someone for one, Zakiya replied, rubbing her exhausted eyes. Haya is giving away her strength for perceived safety. I can't let this dress simply confirm that transaction. The day of the delivery was tense. Haya's wedding coordinator, a formidable woman named Madame Renee, arrived promptly, inspecting the gown with a hawk's gaze. The volume is correct. The stitching is impeccable, Zakiya Amari. You have done well, Madame Renee announced, approving the immaculate exterior. Zakiya simply nodded, accepting the heavy payment. She felt a profound sense of risk. If Haya found the message and viewed it as transgression, Zakiya's career could be ruined. Hidden stitches were common, hidden sentiments were dangerous. Take good care of it, madam, Zakiya instructed, her voice steady. It is structurally complex. It requires robust support. She watched the magnificent gown disappear into the city traffic, carrying her secret, fiery rebellion. 2 days later was the wedding. Zakiya, unable to focus, cleaned her studio obsessively. She kept imagining Haya, radiant and silent, walking toward a life chosen by others. Suddenly, a knock startled her. It wasn't Yaira. It was Haya. She was wearing a silk travel dress, her hair pulled back tightly, makeup free. But in her eyes was a fierce, almost terrifying clarity Zakiya had never witnessed. Zakiya, Haya said, stepping inside. Her voice was low and firm. She looked ready to fight. Zakiya felt a cold knot form in her stomach. Haya. The wedding. The wedding was perfect, thank you, Haya interrupted, closing the door behind her. She walked past shelves of lace and stopped next to the main cutting table. The dress was exquisite. Everyone wept. She reached beneath her collarbone, into the small opening of her travel dress. I found it, Zakiya. Zakiya held her breath. Found what? The internal structure, Haya said, a tremor running through her hands, but her gaze was unwavering. When I was waiting in the antechamber, the hour before the ceremony, everything collapsed. The weight of the satin felt suffocating. The reality of walking away from my life's work, it hit me like a physical blow. Haya paused, taking a deep, shuddering breath. I was rubbing my chest, trying to slow the panic, and I felt the difference in the stitching. It wasn't the smooth satin. It was firm. Like braille. I went into the washroom, locked the door, and used the sharp edge of a candle flame to illuminate the thread, just barely. Haya's eyes softened, recalling the moment. It wasn't a blessing. It was an instruction. Build your own city. Zakiya finally allowed herself to sit down. I apologize, Haya. It was a presumption. I saw a brilliant woman stifling her light, and I acted selfishly, trying to save a part of you. Haya shook her head, moving closer. No. You didn't save me. You just reminded me I had the tools. That thread, that single line of crimson stitching felt more real than the 100 feet of lace on the outside. What happened? Zakiya asked, desperate for the end of the story. I walked down the aisle, Haya said, and I stared at the man waiting for me. I saw the expectation in his eyes, the agreement between him and my father. And I realized that the city I was meant to build was not waiting for me in this marriage. It was waiting for me outside of it. She looked at Zakiya, and a genuine smile, the smile of a woman freed, transformed her face. I reached the altar, and I thanked him for the ceremony, the gifts, and the possibility. But I told him I could not marry him, that I was moving to the coast to take the chief architect position at the Coastal Renewal Project, a job I had secretly interviewed for and turned down, believing I needed to marry first. Silence descended in the thread and needle, broken only by the clock ticking against the shears. It was a scene, Haya admitted, a wry humor entering her tone. It was chaos. But Zakiya, when I turned and walked away, every step was anchored. That dress, That huge, ridiculous ball gown of expected femininity felt like a shield. I knew I had done the right thing because you had woven my strength into the core of the garment. The strength was always yours, Hea, Zakiya insisted. I just helped you locate the anchor. Hea reached out and took Zakiya's hand, clasping it firmly. Thank you for the most honest thing anyone has given me during that farce, a reminder that my purpose is not decorative. She left a moment later, a liberated architect walking toward her future. The incident changed Zakiya. The risk she had taken with Hea, the potential disaster that had turned into powerful liberation, solidified her purpose. She was no longer just a tailor, she was a covert agent of self-determination. The next afternoon, Yaira brought Zakiya a bolt of shimmering, star-dusted velvet. Word is traveling around Etheria society, Yaira said, unwrapping the velvet. Not about the wedding scandal, but about Hea herself. She is thriving. She told someone she realized the difference between being beautiful and being prepared. Zakiya ran her fingers over the rich fabric. The stitch holds. It does, Yaira agreed, her voice full of pride. But Zakiya, you are working yourself ragged. You only accept unhappy brides. You can't save them all. Zakiya picked up her needle, selecting a roll of pale gold thread. I don't save them, Yaira. They save themselves. I just give them a secret touchstone, a way to remember their center amidst the noise. She looked out the window at the busy street, thinking of her own lonely childhood, the endless work, the feeling of invisibility. She had found her purpose not in being seen, but in making sure the secret essential selves of others were acknowledged and strengthened. I know what it's like to feel profoundly alone but be required to look polished, Zakiya reflected, threading the gold silk. Every bride who feels that way deserves a small defiant voice inside that dress, whispering, you are enough. You are the architect of your own joy. She smiled, a slow, genuine light filling her usually reserved face. The needle dipped into the fabric with practiced grace, beginning the meticulous, nearly microscopic task of weaving the next hidden message of hope. Zakiya Amari, the orphan tailor, had found her strength not in the life she inherited, but in the resilience she carefully stitched into the lives of others. And in that secret, silent work, she finally knew she was home. That will be all for today. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. Goodbye.